The truth about your airplane meal. Have you ever had the feeling that your taste receptors aren't working properly above 30,000 feet? It's not your imagination. The in-flight environment has a number of effects on the way your food tastes. The most serious problem is that flying at high altitudes has a significant impact on your sense of taste. Your taste senses are inhibited, even in the comfort of the plane's pressurized cabin, making meals insipid. It's a formula for disaster when you combine low cabin humidity, recycled air, and the ever-present air conditioning. Not only does all that dry air dehydrate the food, hello, dried chicken breast, but it also dehydrates your nose. Because your sense of smell is linked to your sense of taste, your capacity to perceive tastes is further hampered. Even the plane's loudness and vibration can impair your sense of taste by stimulating a neuron in your middle ear that reduces the intensity of some flavors. While in the air, salt is considered to be between 20 and 30% less intense, and sugar is considered to be between 15 and 20% less intense, according to a study commissioned by German airline Lufthansa. So, how do airplanes deal with that severely stifled sense of smell? You guessed it, your meals have a lot more salt and sugar, up to 30% more, to be precise. Even flavors and herbs are applied more liberally than they would be if you were eating off the ground. According to Russ Brown, director of in-flight dining and retail at American Airlines, proper seasoning is crucial to guarantee food tastes excellent in the air. To cater for the cabin dining atmosphere, dishes are frequently changed with additional salt or pepper. United Chief Jerry McLaughlin agreed, saying that in order to make the in-flight meals more robust, he needs to utilize more. Are you concerned about the added salt and sugar? Don't be. Unless people consume in-flight meals very regularly. Professor Joe Weibauf, director of the NUS Food Science and Technology program, told Men's Health, a few bigger meals in a month won't cause substantial worry. They'll also taste better. Ever wonder why, even if you've never drank tomato juice otherwise, you get an uncontrollable urge for it on a plane? We may look to science for an explanation. It simply tastes better at higher elevations. According to Y, a study found that consumers prefer tomato juice in a flight simulator to tomato juice on the ground. We discovered that tomato juice on the ground floor is rather, I'm not saying moldy, but it tastes earthy, and it doesn't taste particularly fresh, said Lufthansa catering executive Ernst D. Rentville. Tomato juice, on the other hand, displays its better side after you reach 30,000 feet. It has a higher acidity level, a mineralic flavor, and is quite refreshing. That's because tomato juice is high in umami, the fifth elusive flavor after sweet, salty, sour, and bitter, which, unlike sweet and salty, is actually enhanced by being in the air. Essentially, science is to blame for that second Bloody Mary you simply must have. So you've just finished one of those adorable tiny bottles of wine, and it seems to have hit you a little harder than normal. Is it all a figment of your imagination? According to Dr. Nick Young of The Telegraph, your head, specifically your brain, is partly to blame. Our brain may sense a very modest drop in the amount of oxygen that it is used to, due to the pressurized cabin, he continues. This is known as hypoxia, and it's what gives you the feeling of being more inebriated. Aside from that, Young claims that dehydration, because to the bone-dry cabin air, and a lack of food, due to the despised airline meals, contribute to the getting drunk faster phenomenon. Okay, so we were a little tipsy, but did anyone else think the wine was off? Wines tend to taste more acidic and tannic inside the pressurized environment of an airplane, according to JetBlue. What works with tomato juice may or may not work with red wine. Bottom line, if you're going to party at 30,000 feet, eat a big meal beforehand, drink plenty of water, and forego the wine if you're a wine connoisseur. A food poisoning event would be disastrous when you're preparing 30,000 meals every day for airplanes. When food safety takes precedence, taste suffers. According to Fritz Gross, Director of Culinary Excellence at LSG Sky Chefs Asia Pacific, a catering company that supplies meals for numerous major airlines. Our primary priority is food safety. We can't afford to put things in there that aren't correct since we do such a high volume. You can imagine how easy a company like an airline could be sued. You may also imagine a less appealing image, the after effects of a plane full of food poisoning passengers. Foods like medium rare steaks are off the table to prevent any risk, he argues, while safer options like pasta or chicken degrade when reheated. If you had a choice, which dish would you choose? Always go for the stew, according to Gross. It'll still be a stew if we cook it, and reheat it over and over again, he explains. Fried rice and fatty salmon, both of which retain moisture well, are also on his list of suggestions. What about drinks, now that chicken and pasta have been added to the do not eat list? Caffeine addicts, bad news, the coffee and tea served in the galley kitchen may be best avoided. The drinking water given on flights is riddled with bacteria, according to EPA test data acquired by NBC. According to data from 2012, 1 out of every 10 planes tested positive for coliform, a germ that implies fecal contamination. While coliform is unlikely to make people sick, it can indicate the presence of other bacteria, such as E. coli, which can make you sick. Even if it doesn't make you sick, who wants feces in their coffee anyway? Contamination happens when unclean hoses and nozzles are used to fill the onboard water tanks, which are subsequently used to brew your coffee and tea. The moral of the story: once you've boarded, stick to bottled water and get your caffeine fix, without the crap, at one of the 73 Starbucks, conveniently positioned around the terminal. If you haven't already, disinfectant wipes will be in your carry-on, after you see what's hiding on your tray table. That's correct, according to TravelMyth, which conducted a survey of the dirtiest areas on airplanes and in airports. The surface on which you eat your in-flight meal is brimming with bacteria. The tray table, in fact, has nearly 8 times more bacteria per inch too than the plane's lavatory flush button, and it even beats out the airport's restroom stall locks and drinking fountains for the title of germiest location. According to Time, Dr. Charles Gerba, a microbiologist at the University of Arizona, his examination of airplane tray tables revealed cold viruses, human parainfluenza viruses, norovirus, which causes diarrhea and vomiting, and the superbug MRSA, which causes skin infections. Aside from a thorough wipe down, leave your meal on the tray or wrapper it's served in, rather than the tray table itself, to avoid catching any of these bugs. The last thing you want is for both the pilot and co-pilot to become disabled due to food poisoning, while flying at 30,000 feet in what is effectively a huge metal death trap. But there's good news: it's unlikely to happen, because most airlines respect the rule that no one on the flight deck should consume the same meal. That way, if one of the pilots feels ill as a result of the food, the other, supposedly uninjured, pilot, can assume control of the aircraft and prevent a fiery death. Some airlines even go so far as to advise their pilots to avoid risky foods like raw fish before taking to the skies. The captain is responsible for ensuring that, wherever possible, the operating pilots have different in-flight meals, a Virgin Atlantic representative told The Telegraph. And, in case you're wondering, being the pilot pays off. They usually get first-class meals, while the co-pilot gets meals from business class. Employees pushing trays down an assembly line of big containers of frozen chicken and frozen veggies, unceremoniously plunking scoops of food into their distinct divisions, might be how your airplane lunch is made. That is not, however, how they are manufactured. To begin with, airline meals are evaluated at sea level, and then in the air to assess how they perform at greater altitudes. After the dishes are placed, they are prepared with great care. When Business Insider went to United's catering facilities, they discovered that it's a time-consuming procedure, with no automation. Several times a day, fresh vegetables is delivered. Before being grilled, fresh vegetables are cut by hand. To avoid overcooking during the reheating phase, the meat is only cooked 30% of the way through. Each dish is individually wrapped by hand, and trays are meticulously arranged in accordance with pictorials. This isn't your typical school cafeteria fare, as it turns out. All bets are off after the meal is on the dry plane, bounced around by turbulence, and warmed in the galley's convection ovens, but it's in terrific form when it gets on board.